postscript on the conversation we were having before the news. You know, in addition to what was happening while the network affiliate press corps was focused on aging hippies in Evanston protesting and older humans outside of Home Depot and Belmont Craig neighborhood protesting. Meanwhile, in an underreported story, the Department of Homeland Security announced that an operation that's part of Operation Midway Blitz that was done in conjunction with the Indiana State Police, our neighbors to the east there, civilized state where they have law enforcement and cooperate with law enforcement, revolutionary idea, has resulted in the arrest of 223 illegal aliens on Indiana highways near the Illinois state line, including 146 truck drivers. The criminal activity associated with the 223 arrests: DUI, drug trafficking, theft, burglary, assault, child abuse, domestic battery, prostitution, and fraud. In addition, 40 drivers had been issued illicitly CDLs. The top states, you'd guess them: California, New York, and Illinois. And there are some pictures of the illicit CDLs that were confiscated. So this is 40 individuals with phony CDL licenses, 223 people on our roadways. And what happened in California, what happened in Florida, can just as easily happen again in Illinois. So then again, lecture me about public safety and what is and is not a manufactured crisis, Mr. Governor, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Political ruling class in Illinois. All right, moving on to the ongoing developments in our understanding of just how expansive Jack Smith's Arctic frost fishing expedition was. Ted Cruz, senator from Texas, of course, was on with Maria Bartiromo over the weekend, and he went off, and I understand why.
Jack Smith was appointed with one mission: stop Donald Trump. Do not let the American people vote for Trump as president. And he took his orders and launched a dragnet, the scope of which has never been seen. He issued at least 197 subpoenas directed at over 430 individuals and organizations, all Republicans. So he went after the Republican Attorney General's Association. He went after Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA. He went after Citizens United, and he issued subpoenas to 9 U.S. senators, all Republicans. I was one of them. The subpoena he sent to my cell phone record, AT&T, was for my cell phone records, my voicemails, my texts, the communications in and out, the geolocation. And he sent it to AT&T. As you noted, AT&T did the right thing. Their lawyers looked at this subpoena and said, we can't hand this over. This is protected by the speech and debate clause. However, AT&T also got on top of that subpoena an order signed by Judge Boasberg that ordered AT&T, you cannot let Cruz know about this subpoena because, as you just read, he found as a judicial matter that if I was notified, I would destroy or tamper evidence and tamper with witnesses. Now, that is absolutely absurd. Verizon, unfortunately, did hand over the records of 8 senators. The speech and debate clause did not dissuade them from doing so. And we've now found out those other 8 senators, those subpoenas also came with judicial orders saying you could not tell the senators.
One of those other Republicans that was targeted that Trump mentioned is our next guest. She's Cleta Mitchell, a well-known and respected election attorney in D.C., also the founder of the Election Integrity Network. Cleta, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan. Thanks for having me.
So you were part of this dragnet that Ted Cruz talked about. I saw from your post on X.
Well, yes. I mean, it's one of the things that it's almost who involved with the Trump campaign or the Republican Party or conservative organizations, the Conservative Partnership Institute, where I'm a senior legal fellow. They really went after us because Mark Meadows who was ultimately indicted and out of this craziness for nothing, for being President Trump's chief of staff. I didn't know that was a criminal activity, but I want to just step back so your listeners understand exactly how this came about. In April of 2022, Christopher Wray authored a memorandum to Attorney General. Christopher Wray, FBI director, authored a memorandum that was directed to Merrick Garland, the Biden regime DOJ Attorney General, and it went through the Deputy Attorney General, Lisa Monaco, or Assistant Attorney General Lisa Monaco, who now works for Microsoft, by the way. Let's remember that part as we go through this.
Of course she does. Yeah.
And said, we need to open an SIM, a sensitive investigative matter. Now, the reason it was called that is because President Trump issued a memorandum in February of 2020 to try to put some guidelines and guardrails around the FBI and the use of the DOJ and the FBI to investigate political figures because of what he'd been through at their hands in 2016, in 2015 and 16. So there are these guardrails. There are already FBI procedures in order to open any investigation. There has to be what I call a predication, which is a criminal act that is about to happen, that has happened or is about to happen, a criminal act. And then there was this memo in February of 2020 saying, in addition, open an investigation. If it involves certain high-level political figures, then there are these additional guardrails to try to keep, and these were put in place to try to protect against using the power of the government to go after your political opposition. Well, boy, they just ran a Mack truck right through all of those safeguards. There were no safeguards. But here's what you need to know. They opened in April of 2022 this SIM, this sensitive investigative matter, and it was confined to, it was pretty broad, but still, the electors, the Trump electors who met and sent alternative certifications for the presidential electors in December of 2020. Now, that is now 2 years earlier, but they are opening this investigation. And that was the justification for opening all of that. And it happened, so Merrick Garland signed that within 2 weeks. You cannot tell me that wasn't approved and discussed at the highest level of the White House and the DOJ. We know that because we have those three top DOJ attorneys and FBI director. And they took that and they expanded it to include the broadest possible dragnet. They listed me, when Senator Cruz talks about those 197 subpoenas, I've read them. Well, some of the subpoenas had 15 or 20 people listed on them. And they got things like, they got my credit report. Now, you want to tell me what Cleta Mitchell's credit reports from 3 different credit reporting agencies had to do with the events that happened in December of 2020 with regard to President Trump's electors meeting and signing contingent election certificates. And the reason they did that is because of a federal court decision in 1960, in the 1960 presidential election, when Richard Nixon carried Hawaii and was announced as the winner of the Hawaii electoral vote, the Kennedy campaign sued in federal court and presented evidence of irregularities, won the case. But in the meanwhile, while that case was pending, the Kennedy lawyers had the Kennedy electors meet and sign contingent elector certificates and sent those to Washington. And the judge in that case said that had they not done that, then even though Kennedy had won his election contest, it would have been meaningless because there would be no electors from Hawaii that could be counted at all. That's what all of those electors did. And from that,
it was a contingency.
That's right. And they knew that. I mean, I'm telling you what, the Department of Justice, they knew that. In Georgia, they had a court reporter at the meeting who recorded that they were meeting solely for the purpose of preserving the President Trump's rights, because we in Georgia had an election contest pending that we had filed on December the 4th. They met to preserve President Trump's electors in the event we won our election contest. That's what they all did in those states.
And something
that's
else.
It all started.
Something else, too. I mean, just in terms of them, decimating the guardrails and essentially taking an ends justify the means approach to these investigations, starting with Jack Smith. But as you say, the entire Biden administration, the entire senior leadership of the Biden administration, including the director of the FBI, including the attorney general. I love this example because it speaks to the mentality or the approach that was taken, the choice that was made. And it's the anecdote that you pulled from the Arctic Frost documents that were released last week about the FBI's interviewing a Republican Party chairman in Pennsylvania.
Right. Well, they showed up at his house. This is another thing. Everyone who's listening to me, I cannot tell you how important this is. I've told many, many clients and people this for many years. The FBI has a habit of showing up early in the morning or late at night at your house. Two of them, there's one of you. They want to catch you off guard, and they want to surprise you. They showed up. I know this because it says it. They got there at 7:20 a.m. And the chairman is an attorney, and he told them that he didn't want to talk to them without his attorney present. And I would tell everybody, never, ever, ever talk to the FBI without your attorney present. Even if you don't have an attorney, you get one. You tell them, thank you, give me your cards. I'll give it to my attorney. We will arrange an interview. That's the way you handle that. That's what he said. Well, what he didn't know was that he let them in, and I don't know how long this interview went on, but they said in the report that they surreptitiously, secretly, they said, we secretly recorded our conversation with him. Well, Pennsylvania is a two-party consent state. And in other words, it is illegal under Pennsylvania law, and this was in Pennsylvania. It's illegal under Pennsylvania law to record anyone without their knowledge and consent. And they didn't do that. But it is they are so lawless, and they have no respect for the law. They were going to go out and they were going to interview all these people around the country and see if they could concoct some sort of criminal violation. That's what they were about doing.
So you know the question that everybody has, which is as this evidence continues to pile up, the question that's always asked is there anything that we know now that we didn't previously, even just before last week, that suggests to you as an attorney that there is potential legal exposure for Jack Smith, for Chris Wray? That's people want to know, is there going to be a reckoning for these bad actors? And your response is what?
Well, I think we're going to find that Chris Wray lied to Congress. I think that's going to be pretty clear. But here's the other thing. It's hard to know about that, Dan. It's really hard to know. I mean, they manage to concoct crimes out of whole cloth. Our people don't work that way. And what I want is everybody who is at the highest levels of the Department of Justice, and I want them to have the same fervor that President Trump has about these things. I don't want them to be bureaucratic. One of the things that I'm advocating for, it's pretty clear to me that this whole electors, that whole basis of opening the Arctic Frost investigation was the electors. And at some point, Jack Smith figured out that they did not have the time to both get President Trump to trial in D.C. and to get all of these electors into trial in D.C. And so I believe that as we keep researching, we're going to find that it was the Department of Justice instigating getting those charges brought at the state level instead of in D.C., because one of the things in this memo, opening the memo, it says the venue, this is for the electors, the venue is Washington, D.C., that even though these events took place in the states, the venue is Washington, D.C., because that's where the impact was because of the federal action. And so I think that what we're going to find is there was a conspiracy to bring charges against these people in state court. And let me tell you something. They're still under indictment as we speak this morning.
Well, that's where I was going to go. So if you can't, potentially can't get to Chris Wray, Jack Smith, and others who were bad actors, what about providing relief to those people who were unfairly and maybe even illegally targeted, people who have had to spend untold hundreds of thousands, millions on legal fees, people who have been disbarred, people who are under indictment currently, relief for them?
Well, that is. I will send you. It should be published today. I've written an article on that very subject for the Federalist. I believe President Trump can pardon each and every one of these people because I believe that the evidence shows that they were acting as proxies for the Department of Justice. That these state AGs. Remember this. These are Democrat AGs in Arizona. This Democrat Chris Mays, who really didn't win her election, but that was an election fraud situation. But she's the Democratic AG of Arizona, the Democrat AG of Wisconsin, Josh Call, the Democrat AG in Michigan, Dana Nessel, and the Democrat in Nevada, Aaron Ford, who twice in 2023 said publicly, there are no state statutes under which I could prosecute these electors. And then in December of 2023, he filed charges against them. And then, of course, we all know about the disgraced Fani Willis in Atlanta. And we know that she had meetings at the White House before she brought the charges against President Trump. And I will tell you this. I want everybody to have this in their minds. You know, President Trump's official White House portrait is his mugshot. Everybody know that? You know that?
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you something. We think of that and we think that's kind of funny. But honestly, as I was struck by that, as I was reading all of this and writing the article for the Federalist, I thought, you know what? Once again, he sees things, he understands things. That mugshot that has now become his official portrait, it says everything about what happened and how it turned out in terms of his victory over them. And I think that, he just has a sense of this. It's a very meaningful, historic, but really emblematic of what the Biden regime did, what they tried to do, and then the mugshot becomes the official White House portrait of the 47th president. But I believe that he can, and under the law, that electors are they're federal positions. These are not state positions. And all of these indictments in all these states were brought and tied to the electors. So I'm hoping that the president will pardon every one of them. And I hope the DOJ will issue a writ of habeas corpus for Tina Peters. There's there are things the DOJ can do, and they need to move and do those things.
Cleta Mitchell, well-regarded election attorney and founder of the Election Integrity Network. Cleta, thanks so much for your time. As always, appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Dan.
And Cleta joined us on the Turnkey.Pro answer line.
It's like a hot, steaming cup of information to start your day. It's Chicago's Morning Answer.